today is Monday, October 16th, 2023. Today is a Committee of the Whole meeting for Barberton City Council. Before we jump into the Committee of the Whole meeting, we do have individual committee meetings this evening, and we will start with street, sidewalk, and lighting with Mrs. Angela.
Thank you, Mr. President. Had to make sure my mic was on.
Thank you.
I'd like to call to order the Street, Sidewalks, and Lighting Committee meeting at 6:02. Members of the committee, Mrs. Bailey and Mr. Shorter, and I are present, along with council and guests as noted on my sheet. I do have a letter from Mr. Todd Shreve requesting emergency legislation to revise ordinance number 69-2023. This is for additional road pavement related to East Houston Street. This change order will allow the city to resurface the road where the storm sewer work was done, and that's from 7th Street to 9th Street. Perrin Asphalt and Concrete will do the resurfacing using bid quantities and pricing. It will be an increase of $59,700, and that amount will come out of the streets capital budget. Mr. Shreve is asking for emergency wording to this change order, so it can be this can be done in a timely manner. Once this is passed, the work can be done immediately. Do I have any questions regarding this piece of legislation from my committee? From anybody? Nope. Okay, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make a motion.
Mrs. Bailey, second. Mr. Griffin. All in favor?
Aye.
We have no pending legislation and miscellaneous discussion. In Friday's Beacon Journal, I had talked about bids a couple weeks ago. Well, in the Beacon, it showed that the city of Barberton, South Van Buren reconstruction, the bids just went out October 13th. This is a project that had started last year, and they're just going out to bid this year. So you're looking at over a year, because this is a total reconstruction, and it's through ODOT. So when you have, state of Ohio, there's a lot of pieces and parts you have to put together. So it isn't something that we just did this year. This was started on last year. So I wanted everybody to see that. That the bids for South Van Buren, I think Mr. Heidig asked when those bids were going to go out. It was in the paper then Friday. And the other thing is that I'm sure most of us received this advisory report. 3rd Street, and if you're downtown, you can see 3rd Street from Worcester Road west to West Tusk will be closed for the duration of that project of closing part of 3rd Street. The post office will be open and functioning normally. The project includes several steps, including the removal of the exit at McDonald's, replacement of the approach to the alley, installation of ADA mats at the alley, milling, resurfacing, signage, and striping. So I don't know if anybody saw that, but I wanted to bring that to the attention. And this, again, was something that Mr. Heidig had talked about, and everybody was wondering, was that going to happen or not? So they're going to close that. It's going to be a one-way street there on 3rd Street. And that is not something that we just did this year. It was in the plans when we go through the Worcester Road and the Robinson Avenue Bridge. That whole thing, that was part of that plan. And that's all I have for miscellaneous. Does my committee have anything for miscellaneous? How about the body? Mr. Heidig?
Thank you, Chair. Question for the directors, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
When is tentatively the schedule to put the top coat on Snyder? The only reason I'm asking is I've had people asking the cross streets to it. The edges are getting pretty sharp going up and over it when you cross over it.
So the answer to your question is the contractor has until, I believe, October of 2024 to resurface and finish that. However, Carvo has accelerated their schedule all the way through this process, and I don't want to commit Carvo to finishing this year, but they intend, weather permitting, which it's raining and cold now, their goal is still to start and put the top coat on this year, but they're not required by the ODOT contract until later next year. But I know they're hustling before the asphalt plants close. You can see they ground it down, they come back and do base repairs, they put on the intermediate course, then they'll go do all the concrete work like they've done and put the ADAs, curbing in, sidewalk in, and then once all that's done, they'll come back only then to put the top course on, which real soon, within the next week, I believe they want to start, but nobody can predict what's going to happen 2 days from now weather-wise, whether that will continue to happen. So hopefully that answers your question. In the meantime, one by one, they can ask, call the mayor's office, call me. We can work with ODOT and the ODOT contractor, because they have a truck a lot of times to go out, and then they can put some intermediate patching to keep bumps, driveways, manholes, anything that might be causing something that they don't see. They can go out and take care of that temporarily as the project is progressing.
Thank you.
If you want to stay there, I think Mr. Greer had his hand up. Was that the
This
same
is,
question?
no, this was
okay,
just for
got a
you,
different one.
Councilwoman.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Just a refresher, the 3rd Street's going to be the one-way, correct? Coming
Yes.
off of Worcester Road?
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you.
Do I have a motion? Any other questions from the body? Any other, do I have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Bailey, second. Mr. Griffin, and we are adjourned at 6:09. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Angela. Next up, Environmental Health and Social Services with Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call to order the Environmental Health and Social Services Committee. It is 6:10 p.m. We are in council chambers. Myself as chair, along with Mr. Jaber and Mrs. Angela. All other council members as noted, and all others who are present are on my sheet. We do have requested legislation, a letter from myself, Eric Bailey, Councilwoman Ward 1, requesting legislation in the form of a resolution in support of Summit's DD's $4.5 million operating levy that is on the ballot for this November, and emergency wording is requested. I did send a letter with a little bit of information. Did everyone get that?
Yes.
Better. Any questions about that? Yep.
Thank you, Chair. It says the same millage as 07 that was voted in. If this is not voted, if this is rejected, does it all disappear?
The funding?
Yes.
I don't know that. I can find that
Wait.
out. Oh, hi. Good.
They're going to give a
Oh, okay,
presentation.
great. Great.
Then I retract that until.
All right, we have a presentation. That's awesome.
Chair, would you guys want to speak during committee on this regard, or is it?
It's Yeah. totally up to you. We're happy
We-
to speak now if that makes sense.
Yeah, Chair, it's up to you if you want to have them
Yeah.
speak on it.
Okay, sure. Okay. Want me to come up here? Please.
Yeah, okay, thank you. You can come here or here, wherever you're more comfortable.
Perfect. Sorry, excuse me. All right, well, good evening. Hi, I'm Holly Brew. I'm the Assistant Superintendent at the Summit County Board of Developmental Disabilities.
I'm Rusty Plain, Director of IT and Facilities for Summit ED.
Yes, and if you know, we have a beautiful building here in Barberton. So we just wanted to share with you that we are, yes, on the ballot this November. Our Summit DD's operating levy makes up more than 80% of our agency revenue. So our levy is set to expire at the end of December, and we'll be putting a replacement levy on the ballot, issue 17. This replacement levy will fund our services from 2025 through 2030. And we have not experienced any increase in revenue since 2017. Since that time, we have had an increase of over 30% of the individuals, children, and adults we serve at Summit DD. A replacement levy will cost homeowners $3.58 more per $100,000 of appraised value. This funding will support an increase in children and adults needing services both today and for years to come. And currently, there are about 300 residents in Barberton who receive our services, both children and adults. They get services like early intervention, case management, residential, and employment supports. So passing issue 17 will ensure these services will continue. And it is important to note that this millage will be on current home values and not newly appraised home values in 2024. So I thank you so much for your time and attention. I can answer any questions if you have them.
Mr. Heidick did have a question. So if this would not pass,
Correct.
would that remove all funding?
We would continue on with our 2007 amount.
Amount.
Thank you.
Correct. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have no pending legislation. Is there any miscellaneous discussion? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
We are adjourned at 6:14 PM.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. Next up is Planning, Annexation, and Codes with Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to bring the Planning, Annexation, and Codes Committee to order. It is Monday, October 16th, 6:14 PM here in Council Chambers. All members of the committee are present, which includes myself as chair, Mrs. Angeloff, Mr. Jaber, and President Greer. All other council members are also present, as well as guests noted on my agenda sheet. We have one late request for legislation. This is, we'll have to invoke Rule 702 to suspend Council Rule 302, the 10-day rule. And this is in regards to the rezoning of the former Oakdale site. This is for parcel numbers 01.17406, 01.17407, 01.17408, 01.17409, 01.17410, 01.17411, 01.17412, 01.17413, 01.17414, 01.17415, 01.17416, 01.17417, 01.17418, 01.17419, 01.17420, and 01.17421 to RM18 residential multifamily. Before we get into this, can I have a motion to invoke Council Rule 702 to suspend Rule 302?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. In a second.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Your mic wasn't on.
I'll make a second, please.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, for this particular request, this was voted on unanimously in the Planning Commission meeting in June to deny this request. It's not consistent with the neighborhood, and the plans also didn't meet the requirements that are outlined in our development code. So, are there any, and this will go 3 readings because it is a zoning request, so. Are there any questions or comments about this? Yes. Don't make me read the numbers again.
Thank you, Chair. No, I'd just like to say you did it better than I did.
Yeah, you did good.
I did have, I just wanted to note that this ordinance is reverse wording. So a vote yes for this would be no for the ordinance. Is that correct?
Yes, so this, if this were approved, the zoning request would be denied.
There you go. Yes. Thank you.
Yep. Are there any other questions from the gallery? Mr. Worsler, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Only that since our public hearing on September 5th, the Planning Department has received no additional comments from the public on this issue.
Okay, thank you. And I will say that there was quite the audience at the Planning Commission meeting. Nobody in favor of this, so. Can I have, oh, yes.
The builders or the property owners has the commission heard from them? Because when we had the public hearing, nobody showed up here. So have you heard from them since that?
We have not.
Nothing?
Can I have a motion to call?
I'll make a motion to call for this.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And again, that will go 3 readings. We have no pending legislation. And for miscellaneous discussion, just would like to remind everybody, we've got a Board of Zoning and Building Appeals meeting tomorrow evening here at 5:30, and then Wednesday is our Planning Commission meeting, also at 5:30. Are there any other remarks from the committee or other council members?
Is there anything on the agenda for Wednesday planning committee? Anything?
No new items, but we are going to be discussing the, the Icon World Entertainment on West Page. So that's old business, but they're coming back.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
yep, I'll let you know any updates after the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anything else from the gallery? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
you.
second that.
Thank you. We're adjourned at 6:19.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Last but not least, Finance and Personnel, Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel, it is Monday, October 16th, 2023. It is 6:19 in council chambers. The committee is present, which consists of Councilors Coburn, Thompson, President Greer, myself as chair, all others noted. We have some requests tonight. First, referred from safety, a letter from Chief Stephen Iono requesting legislation to appropriate $1,383.43 from the unappropriated item of the general fund to the fire department's operating budget. Emergency wording has been requested. This was referred from safety. Does anybody have any questions from last week? Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Next, a letter from Jeremy Flaker, Finance Director, requesting legislation for an appropriation in the amount of $877,500 from the unappropriated item of the FEMA fund to the capital budget of the Water Department FEMA fund for the design phase of the grant we're receiving for the dam reconstruction. One reading and emergency wording has been requested. Are there any questions here? Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next, a letter from Jeremy Flaker, Finance Director, requesting legislation to appropriate $294,224.45 from the unappropriated item of the CDBG fund to the Planning Department budget of the CDBG fund. One reading and emergency wording has been requested. Are there any questions on this? Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
And we have another referred from safety, letter from Chief Vince Morber requesting legislation to appropriate $7,500 from the One Ohio Fund to the Police Department operating account in the One Ohio Fund. Emergency wording has been requested. Anybody think of anything from last week?
No. I'll make a motion, we call for it.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that is it for any requests. So I will open this up. Is there any miscellaneous from my committee?
I have nothing.
From the body? From the gallery? Seeing none. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:22.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. That concludes our individual committee meetings for this evening. I'm going to take a play out of Mr. Mentors' playbook. We're going to take a 3-minute break. I need to clarify a few things, and we'll come back and begin the committee of the whole meeting. Again, please ensure your cell phones are off or on silent, and ensure that your microphones are turned on for council members. Actually, probably should not cross my fingers.
They carry that.
Yeah, they carry it.
All right. Today is Monday, October 16th, 2023. Today is a committee of the whole meeting for Barberton City Council. I call this meeting to order at 6:29 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For citizens addressing council, you may notice Summit MRDD was on the list to speak. However, they spoke during the Health Committee meeting. So we will roll into Mrs. Kaleo. You know the deal.
Thank you. My name is Paula Callio, and I live on Wisteria Drive in Barberton, Ohio. I'm here to talk about Magic's Ready to Learn, which is a fund that was started by a group of 9 women, local Barberton women, that to help 1,500 students receive all the same school supplies for the school year. We were very lucky at that time. Marks was just moving into Barberton, and they were very happy to help us with this cause and gave us all of the school supplies that the students need from kindergarten to 5th grade. That way, they charged us just costs. They never charged for shipping. They didn't charge for holding the goods. They were very giving, let's put it that way. And we really appreciate Marks. We've done this now for 2 years. We're working towards our 3rd year. The reason I came up with this idea, I saw with my great-grandson some of the things that he was not able to speak properly when we got over COVID, and I got to go visit, and I said, why is he not speaking correctly? He should be. And my grandson said it's because he wore a mask, and his teachers wore a mask, his caregivers. And when I came back home, I got to thinking, that's one thing, but then all these little guys, they were at home, parents were trying to help them, they were on computers, they were just missing out on everything, even just socializing with other children. So I came up with this idea, and then I found a few women that I contacted. I usually take them to lunch so that they will feel guilty not saying no to me. Anyway, we've done different, the city of Barberton, the owners of businesses have been so giving. We started a fund. It was a pass-through fund, and now we have our own fund, which I am just elated with the amount of money that the local businesses and the local residents have donated to this cause. One of the things we've done is we've had several different fundraisers, like euchre. We had a pickleball tournament that went very well, raised money. And so we've got one more coming up November the 4th. We've decided to have a chili cook-off, and it's going to be held at Ignite, and it is November the 4th from 12 to 4. I do have a few of the flyers here if anyone would like one. You can get your tickets at the door. We're not pre-selling tickets, and they're $15 a person. You'll get to taste 20 different chilies, we think. Right now, we're at 16, but we're probably going to pick up a few more. And then you'll get your own bowl of chili that you liked, that was your favorite. You'll get to vote to your favorite. I have an interesting one going between the fire department and the police department. They're going one-on-one with each other, and we're going to see who wins. Dave Polachek has already said we might as well give it up. He will be the winner. So, anyway.
And don't forget the cornbread.
Oh, yes, yes. We'll also, thank you, Jacob. She's one of my gals. The cornbread is being donated, and so is the brownies. So that's all part of the $15. And children, 5 and under is $5, and under that is free. So we hope you all will attend and talk it up to your friends, your neighbors, your family. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. And I think that's it. If anybody has questions, feel free to ask them. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
All right, we'll jump into committee reports, and we'll start off with Mrs. Angeloff with Street, Sidewalk, and Lighting.
Thank you. Mrs. Kaleo just made me hungry for chili. It's the season. The Street, Sidewalk, and Lighting Committee meeting met this evening at 6:02. All members of the committee were present, along with council members and guests as noted on my sheet. We have one piece of legislation that is requested from Mr. Todd Shreve, Service Director, requesting legislation to amend Ordinance 69-2023 for the additional road pavement related to East Houston Sewer. This pavement will go from 7th Street to 9th Street. He's asking emergency wording so it could be done in a timely manner, and they, as soon as this is passed, they can get started on that. It was voted out of committee, and we have no pending legislation and miscellaneous. I was just talking about some of the ODOT, the programs or the reconstruction that is coming through along with the bids. And Mr. Heidig did ask about Snyder Avenue, and Mr. Tiadecki did give us a explanation on that. Just hope we don't get any snow here in the next week or so that can get done. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Ms. Angeloff. Next up, Planning and Annexation Codes, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes Committee met this evening, October 16th at 6:14 here in council chambers. All members of the committee were present, as well as all other council members and guests as noted on my sheet. We had one late legislation request, which we invoked Council Rule 702 to suspend Rule 302, the 10-day rule. A request for the Planning Department through the Law Department, requesting an ordinance denying the rezoning of the former Oakdale site. Lots of parcels there. This will go 3 readings. We have no pending legislation nor miscellaneous discussion. We adjourned at 6:19. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Next up, City Utilities, Mrs. Coburn.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met October 9th in council chambers. We had one request for legislation, a letter from Mayor William Judge requesting legislation to pay for an invoice in the amount of $14,037.08 to Lampin Companies and Perrin Electric for additional work completed with the lighting upgrade at the sports complex field. We have emergency wording and requested so that we can get this paid. We passed all other legislation. We had no miscellaneous discussion, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Coburn. Public Welfare and Safety, Mrs. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Welfare and Safety Committee met on Monday, October the 9th, 2023. Meeting began at 6:06. All members of the committee were present, as well as council members. Mr. Jaber was absent, and all other guests, as noted on my sheet. We had 2 requests for legislation. The first was a letter from Chief Vince Moore requesting legislation to appropriate $7,500 from the Ohio Fund to the Police Department operating account in the One Ohio Fund. Emergency wording was requested, and this was referred to Finance. The second piece of legislation was requested in the form of a letter from Stephen Iono, Chief of the Barberton Fire Department, requesting legislation to appropriate $1,383.43 from the unappropriated item of the general fund to the fire department's operating budget. Emergency wording was requested, and this also was referred to Finance. This particular amount was a reimbursement from Noble Oil for work that the fire department had done on the cleanup of the Tuscarora River. There was no pending legislation. We had no miscellaneous discussion, and with that, public welfare and safety will pass.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Rules, Marketing, Development, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules, Marketing, and Development met on October 9th. We met in council chambers, all members present and guests as noted. We had no new legislation. We adjourned at 6:11. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Environmental Health and Social Services, Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Environmental Health and Social Services met tonight at 6:10 in council chambers. All members were present, all council members were present, and others as noted on my sheet. There was one topic of requested legislation, a letter from myself requesting legislation in the form of a resolution in support of Summit DD's $4.5 million operating levy that is on the ballot for this November. Emergency wording was requested. We got more information. A question was asked regarding if this does not pass in November, would they lose all funding? They would not. They would go back to the 2007 budget. We voted on that. It passed. No miscellaneous discussion, and we adjourned at 6:14 p.m. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. City Properties, Parks, and Recreation, Mr. Jaber.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Properties and Park Recreation met October 9th, 6:03, council chambers. Myself as chairman was not here, so Mr. Heidig was co-chair, took the committee over. We had no new requested legislation, and we adjourned at 6:03 also. That I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. Finance and Personnel, Mr. Heidig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel is calling for the following. Legislation to appropriate $1,383.43 from the unappropriated item of the general fund to the fire department's operating budget with emergency wording requested. That was referred from safety. Next, appropriation in the amount of $877,500 from the unappropriated item of the FEMA fund to the capital budget of the Water Department FEMA fund for the design phase of the grant we're receiving for dam reconstruction. One reading, emergency wording requested. Next, legislation to appropriate $294,224.45 from the unappropriated item of the CDBG fund to the planning department budget of the CDBG fund. One reading, emergency wording requested. Finally, legislation to appropriate $7,500 from the One Ohio Fund to the Police Department operating account in the One Ohio Fund. Emergency wording has been requested. That referred from safety as well. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Heidig. Thank you, everybody. That is the end of the committee reports. Is there anything from the body? All right. Well, I have two things. First off, after brief discussion with the mayor and finance director, it's not looking like we'll do a work session on the 5th Monday this month on the 30th. However, with that said, that doesn't mean we can't. If anybody has any questions or ideas, possibly to reinstate that, I'll be more than willing to entertain it. However, we'll just kind of be grinding on some information we already currently have, and we need some more information. So I'm not sure that the work session, as of now, we're not going to have a work session on the 5th Monday. Second, this is just a personal thing for me. There's a lot going on in the world today, so just remember to be compassionate, open-minded, and respect everybody, respect your neighbors, look out for one another, and be vigilant. So, nothing else. Is there anything from the directors? All right, mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, many of us here at the city work with Barberton Middle School and TomTom to meet with students, answering their questions and as they learn about the community, and put together kind of basically a SWOT analysis of the community. So it was great to answer questions and talk with the students. This is the second year that they've had this program. It's been an honor to be involved with TomTom in the schools for 2 years in a row here, so hopefully that continues. Really interesting talking to them. Last week we gave the Coffee Pot of Proclamation for our 100 years of service, serving the Barberton community. You know, over the years we've had a lot of businesses who have hit that milestone, whether it's 100 years or 75 years or 50 years. And it's great to see the longevity of these businesses. You think about what's happened in the last 3 or 4 years, let alone the last 50 years or 75 years or 100 years. There's been a lot of obstacles and challenges that these businesses, small businesses, have been able to overcome. Which is, you know, it's a great feeling here in Barberton to have so many businesses meet those milestones. Last week also, we also recognized Barberton football coach Tony Gatto for becoming the winningest coach in Barberton football history, surpassing former coach Sharkey as they won against Copley the other week. Unfortunately, the Magic's lost this past week, kind of a tough loss to Aurora. But we'll finish the season in Colgan Falls for the Bell and then go on to the playoffs. So not all is lost there. Change for Change will be in El Tule benefiting the Down Syndrome Association later this week on Friday the 20th. Spoke with some people down in D.C. as the legislators come together on selecting a speaker, because everything has been paused, right, with no speaker of the House. So the schedule basically is, it appears that Representative Jordan is going to be elected. If that happens, there's still no guarantee that they will start moving into and passing bills at that time. If something happens, and this is scheduled for tomorrow, and that could change too. If he fails to be elected, it's unknown if the Republican conference will move to recess at that time or move into another vote. So there's still a lot up in the air. And I bring this up because everything's kind of to be determined, but everything's being held up until there's a speaker. And legally, nothing can pass. Resolutions, nothing can pass. Appropriations, anything until there's a speaker. So it appears that Representative Jordan's going to be voted in, but that could all change. So that should happen tomorrow. And again, if that happens tomorrow, they're still not sure if they're going to move forward with voting on appropriations and different bills, or if they're going to do that later in the week or down the road. So if you have questions, please let me know, and I'll try to find out as that kind of unfolds. As legislators, or as they work on that, we're still working with our rep, Congresswoman Sykes. We have some pending grants that we applied for, as you know. So they've worked their way out of her office, and one worked his way out of Senator Sherrod Brown's office. So kind of all of this is being held up, and nothing's being approved. So hopefully this comes into a resolve, because this affects, trickle down does affect all the communities. So a lot going on. And also a little update, as you know, the city has ordered 4 new police cruisers. I'm still waiting for these to be delivered. They do have VIN numbers, so that means they have been produced. Obviously a lot going on in the auto industry these days. So hopefully these get delivered soon. So the tennis court at Brightenstein Park, pickleball courts at Tuscarora Park and Edgewood Park will be dedicated this Wednesday, the 18th, starting at 1 o'clock at Brightenstein Park. So you should have received an email today on that. So a lot of work has gone into those. Weather should be nice by Wednesday, and then it's going to go in the other direction. So it seems to be the way it happens in the fall here. So hope to see you there at those parks. Just lastly, kind of want to touch on the road projects. You know, I got some calls that there's, you know, kind of words or rumors flying around that these projects all kind of came together here at the last minute, and that's not true. Council understands that you've passed the legislation over the years to apply for funding or appropriate money or the Taylor Road project, we applied for funds back in 2021. Did not get those funds. We reapplied in '22, and we're able to get those funds, and now the project's coming due now. 4th Street, downtown, West Hopkins, Snyder Avenue, Norton Avenue, those are not complete because I received, similar to what your question was, why aren't these complete yet? And so these roads are still getting the curbs, the sidewalks put in, and then, if weather holds off, then that final coat will be put on. So I know they're working on those streets and finishing up the concrete work. Looking really nice, get that top coat on and be ready to go. Even with the top coat going on, that's not the end of the project. So, they'll come back and solidify around the manholes. They'll be doing the striping, and then there's still a punch list, and then there's a warranty on that. So, like 5th Street the other year over on the east side, if you remember that, that kind of ended at the end of the year, and then we came back in the springtime. We found some things that weren't right, met with them. Long story short, they came back and ground it out and repaved that. So, and I believe you provided some input on that, some emails and pictures and things. So very similar there. And I bring this all up because a lot of these projects do stretch various wards, multiple wards. And it's just trying to explain again to residents, because it really doesn't make much sense that you apply this year, you get awarded that money, but the money doesn't come for several years after that. And so there's multiple pieces of legislation that we have to have approved. And again, this is a partnership, or called a partnership, between the federal government, who supplies the money from the gas tax, to AMATs, and that's who kind of doles out the money through their committees, and the state of Ohio, ODOT, who runs the project. Worcester Road North and West State Street is another one. As I mentioned last week, they're going to continue doing as much as they can. Most likely, they're going to button up what they're doing now, finish that part, and then button it up, remove the barrels, and then let traffic flow as it normally would, and come back in the spring. But a lot of this is dependent on the weather. And then just lastly, as mentioned by Councilwoman Angeloff, on 3rd Street downtown here, that one block will be one way going northbound. So if you're from Barberton, you remember there used to be a traffic light at Worcester Road West and 3rd Street by the post office there. That was removed probably close to 20 years ago, if not longer. And based on the crash data, whether that's vehicle on vehicle, that's vehicle and bicycle or motorcycle, or vehicle and pedestrian, there's a safety issue there. So making that one block, one way will curtail all that, and also bring up or pick up additional parking spots on 3rd Street. So again, we've been working on that for several years now. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions. Yes.
I do have a question in regards to that. As far as the entrance to McDonald's, because I know we were talking to them about whether or not we were going to take that entrance and add parking spots there, or if they were going to keep it as is, or what.
No, that's been removed. A curb will be put in with sidewalks.
Okay.
They have 3 other entrances that all have in and out, and so we'll pick up more parking spots by having that removed.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
With nothing else, this meeting is adjourned at 6:52 p.m. Thank you.